Hey everybody, it's a Flat Earth photographer here, and today we're going to talk about NASA's Nikon digital cameras aboard the ISS, the ones they've been supposedly using on spacewalks since the early 2000s. Now, I did have a difficult time finding information on these thermal blankets, these covers that they're wrapping the cameras with when they do spacewalks, and didn't even find any real usable video footage of the cameras being used on those spacewalks. Uh, and even still, photographs were hard to find. Searched the internet for them, and the most I could find were medium to low resolution images, and that probably shouldn't surprise anybody. I also couldn't find any metadata on the spacewalk photos, including those on NASA's own site. So they are only providing stripped down JPEGs with all the metadata missing. And before you go off and say, I've seen metadata in the photos from NASA before, well, you're correct, because I have too. Just not any from the supposed spacewalk shots that I could find. If you can find some, that would be great. Please send me some of those photos so I can take a look, but I couldn't find any. So here's a list of digital cameras that NASA's been using on the ISS. The list from Wikipedia. They're digital cameras. And this is Nikon's press release from August 25th, 2017, stating that NASA has ordered 53 Nikon D5 cameras from them. And if you'll notice in that remark that it says, NASA have not requested any special hardware modifications to any of the 53 cameras in its order. So these are stock cameras, guys. These are actually stock cameras, off-the-shelf cameras that you and I can go buy today. Here's another older document stating the same thing from around 2008, showing the DS3 being used at the time. Again, same thing. It says NASA uses off-the-shelf DSLR gear, and you can see the red underline line right there. Same stuff going on. So a few things to consider, as you'll see in this photo of the astronaut holding the camera. Notice the lens is bare and exposed to space. It's a Nikon 28mm AFD. It's made of plastic, glass, metal internals, and some rubber grip rings around the barrel. Here's a closer shot of the rubber ring for manual focusing. And you can see that the lens has kind of a plasticky look and doesn't look like something that would be hardened for space, that's for sure. In these particular photos here, we can see the thermal blanket on display, showing a little more detail on how the cover looks and wraps around the camera. I came across this particular article in Popular Photography magazine, published July 27, 2011, and it states, the thermal blanket protects the equipment from the temperature extremes during the EVA. If you look down lower, it says, typically tend to keep touch temperatures between 120 degrees Celsius and negative 129 degrees Celsius. Now, there was actually a link within this. I could not click the link and get it to go anywhere. It just went to a dead page on NASA's site. So the link for the PDF on explanation of the thermal blanket is now gone. It's been removed. So not really sure what's going on there, but I could find nothing on that now. Now let's hear what NASA has to say about the operating environment in space.
While you're on the spacewalk, to be able to go out and do the work that you've been trained to do. We expect to have spacewalks during my ISS mission. One of the neatest things about the spacewalks is when you're in the sun, it's about plus 100, 250 degrees. So it's really hot. And so we have thermal covers, we protect all our equipment, metal gets really hot to touch. But as soon as that equipment goes into the shade, either the sun sets or you block it, or it's just shaded by space station, it goes to minus 250 degrees. So the coldness of space. So literally, you could have your hand at 250, plus 250 here, put it in shade, it's at minus 250. So that's what makes our spacesuits so amazing. They can protect us and keep us comfortable in those radical temperature changes.
Okay, so we just heard that the operating environment in space is extremely harsh, roughly a 500-degree difference between the sun and the shade. Now let's take a look at the astronaut spacesuits. They consist of multiple layers of protection and even include a heating and cooling system to keep them comfortable and safe while on spacewalks. Now let's see what Nikon recommends for the camera's operating environment. 0 to 40 degrees Celsius or 32 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit Yes, these cameras can operate well beyond these temps, but it's not recommended, and adverse results can occur, including battery and electronic failures and slowdowns. So NASA says the thermal blanket is made of Mylar, Kevlar, and aluminum. It's said to provide protection from negative 100 to 150 degrees Celsius. It says nothing about radiation protection, which is kind of odd. And it apparently costs $20,000, so very, very expensive. In my research, I could only find variants of the claimed material that NASA says they use to make the covers, and all of them have kind of a shine or a sheen to them. So take a look at this sample of Kevlar and aluminum material that I found. The aluminum backing is very shiny and something that cannot be seen on the existing blanket / wrap that you see of the camera. If you can find this magic material, please send me a link. I'd like to see it. The other thing that stood out to me was a rather standard looking Velcro, also known as hook and loop. I did some checking, and the high heat rated Velcros are only good to about 200 degrees, maybe just a little bit warmer than that. You'll also notice the fabric doesn't appear to have any other layers like aluminum, Mylar, or anything else, within them. So it just kind of looks like a canvas type material with sewn on Velcro strips. You be the judge there. So here's an example of standard Velcro, and it pretty much looks identical to the stuff that's used on the thermal cover. And again, it's my opinion, but it looks pretty much the same. So moving on from the extreme temperatures of space and what effects those alone will have with off-the-shelf cameras and lenses, what about the effects of cosmic radiation on standard off-the-shelf camera bodies and lenses? I found this article from Tested Magazine dated May 21st, 2013, and it actually states the following. The prosumer-grade cameras used on the International Space Station aren't heavily modified for use in space. Now, they've been certified with rigorous testing, but that's the same stuff we get down here on the Earth. So they're actually not shielded from cosmic radiation that exists on both the outside and inside of the station. So you're going to see some damage done, and that's from their own quote on the interview from Tested Magazine. So you're going to start seeing dead pixels. Now let's see what our astronaut buddy Don Pettit has to say about cosmic rays and how it affects electronic equipment aboard the ISS. I found this article from his blog, and it says, free from protection offered by the atmosphere, cosmic rays bombard us within the space station, penetrating the hull almost as if it were not there. They zap everything inside, causing such mischief as locking up our laptop computers and knocking pixels out of whack in our cameras. They have to reboot the computers periodically from what he states here. So what does that also include with rebooting? Well, a camera has computers inside it. So the Nikon cameras they're using up there have computers in them. They're going to be affected just like the other computers aboard, and possibly even worse since they're being used out in space without any additional protection. So just a few things to consider there. In the following video, Rad Solutions demonstrates the effects of radiation on a commercial video camera, simulating high altitude and space scenarios. A link to the full YouTube video will be in the description below. As you can see from this test, the video camera sensor and electronics begin to suffer the effects of radiation pretty quickly, and ultimately it creates total camera failure. So yes, you can argue the thermal blanket provides little protection from the extreme temperatures of space, but I still don't think the cameras would work for much more than, say, 10 to 15 minutes before the electronics fail or the battery is too cold to function properly. The thermal blanket simply is not like the environmentally controlled spacesuit with heating, cooling, and radiation protection. It's just some high heat resistant fabric wrapped around the camera and does nothing more. So draw your own conclusions, but I think logical thinking and analysis of the thermal blanket, that cover, provides plenty of evidence that this magic cover is BS, nothing more. Okay, last but not least, I decided to include a few photos of the early spacewalks. They proved to be interesting as well. Let's take a look at the exposed camera in the photo. You'll notice that it's bare metal with no protection of any kind. The film being used in these cameras would not only suffer from heat damage, but also suffer from the effects of radiation, causing possible fogging, streaks, color shifts, lack of contrast, just to name a few. And yes, there have been studies done on the effects of film in space. If you want to find out more on that, you can look at the links below. Another thing that's quite laughable in this picture is you can see the astronaut's helmet is turned towards the astronaut taking the photo. You see the problem with that? The helmets lock into place so they can provide an airtight seal. Don't believe me? Look it up. And if you're also curious, the rotating helmet phenomenon can also be seen in some old Russian space footage that looks like claymation. It kind of reminds me of watching Clash of the Titans. Remember that one from I think it was the late 70s. So everybody, that's it for now. I'm working on more videos in the near future. Lots of good stuff to come, I hope. Please like if you like, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Till next time, peace everyone.